Night of the tragic case surrounding a missing child.
We're gonna find him. Stay positive.
That is new video released by Columbus Police just this afternoon showing the moments officers began searching for 8-year-old Martonio Wilder. His mother, Lashanda Wilder, reported him missing last Friday, and after hours of searching, officers discovered Martonio's body in the attic of the family's home. The mother and her girlfriend, Johnna Lowe, are now facing charges related to Martonio's death.
10 TV's Carla Rogner looked through the police body camera video this afternoon. She's live now outside Columbus Police headquarters with what she saw.
Yeah, the video begins hours before police found Martonio's body when Lashanda first reported him missing. In the video, her face is blurred and a lot of her conversation with the officer has been redacted. But in that video, she sticks to her story that Martonio had run away. Around 1 p.m. Friday, a Columbus police officer meets an emotional Lashanda Wilder outside her home on Olmsted Avenue.
So what's going on? Okay, has he run away before? Okay, have you checked the residence thoroughly?
Lashanda tells him she hasn't seen her son since the night before when they went to bed.
So you guys all went to bed at 9:30.
Lashanda leads the officer into the house where you can see her girlfriend, Johnna Lowe, in the red shorts out front before the video is blurred.
Mom got up about 11:48, noticed that the back door was open, and he's run away 3 times before. So if we can have units circulate some parks and areas around here, we're going to go ahead and search the house.
Lashanda tells the officer the back door was left open.
Let me go check out here real quick, okay?
When the officer doesn't find anything there, he asks Johnna and Lashanda if they have any idea where he might be.
No other family friends. What?
I haven't seen nobody else when I walked around the attic.
All right. All right.
Lashanda tells the officer Martonio has done this before.
Why is you think he's running away? He's a little unruly, and there is a caseworker, and she's like, he probably got mad because she doesn't give him what he wants. So, and then he kind of has a habit of doing that, I guess.
Eventually, police begin to search by helicopter.
So we're over here looking Hamilton and 18.
And going door to door.
You seen this kid at all recently? He's missing.
Oh,
It's just past noon on a Friday in June. A police officer pulls up to a house on the east side of Columbus, Ohio. A woman is waiting outside. She's crying. She tells him her 8-year-old son didn't come home last night and that he's run away before. 3 times, she says. The officer asks if he can go inside and look. She says yes. Behind them, the search begins. By that evening, it will end, inside that house, in a place no one thought to check first. But how did we get here? You're watching Guilty Crime Files, where real cases involving ordinary people reveal warning signs too important to ignore. Like, subscribe, and share, because awareness could save a life. Here's what investigators knew by the end of that first day. Martonio Wilder was 8 years old. His mother said he'd run away 3 times before, so at first this looked routine. By early evening, it stopped looking routine. A cadaver dog arrived. His mother didn't want it in the house. Before dark, she and her girlfriend were gone. So were Martonio's 2 younger siblings, found hours later across the city, with no explanation for how they got there. And somewhere in a police evidence file, there was already a recording, made 6 months earlier, of someone trying to warn officers this might happen.
Attorneys for the family say warning signs were missed, including a Christmas Day incident 6 months before Martonio was found dead in his attic. 10 TV has the body camera video of that day. Here's what Wilder's aunt told police.
she gone, and them babies is going to suffer.
Okay.
They're going to suffer.
Martonio Wilder was born in 2016 in Columbus, Ohio. Before he was a day old, he was already a case file. A hospital reported that he tested positive for drugs at birth, and Franklin County Children's Services opened a record that would follow him for the rest of his life. He had 2 younger siblings. A brother who would turn 9 the year Martonio died. A sister, just 3. For a while, none of the 3 children lived with their mother. Family members say Lashanda Wilder gave the kids up, that her own mother and sister stepped in and took them out of the system. For about 4 years, Martonio wasn't in his mother's custody at all. Then, sometime before 2024, that changed. To people on the outside, it looked like good news. For us, it looked like she was doing better, one cousin would later say. She came back, she got her own house. Martonio went home. In September 2023, police were called to a children's behavioral health center in Columbus, where Martonio was staying. The report says he was having behavioral issues, and that staff called 911 because his mother wouldn't come get him. It happened 4 times. At the time, it looked like a difficult kid having a difficult stretch. A note in a file. Nothing that would make anyone stop. His family remembers him differently. Rochelle Knight is his great-aunt. Saya Glover is his cousin. They describe a small, close family, the kind where everyone shows up for everyone else's kids. They remember a boy with, in their words, the most beautiful smile, bright eyes, and full of life. They also remember worrying about the home he was going back to, about a mother who, by their account, had not always put her children first. But on paper, in 2023, things looked stable. A reunited family. A caseworker assigned. A file that by law should have been checked every month. At the time, nobody considered that important. By the time Martonio came home, Lashanda Wilder had a new partner, Johnna Lowe. The two women shared a house on the east side of Columbus in the Milo Grogan neighborhood. 3 kids under one roof. From a distance, it read as a fresh start. Lashanda was working. She had her own place. To people who had watched her struggle for years, who had taken her kids in when she couldn't care for them, this looked like progress. For us, it looked like she was doing better, her cousin said. She came back. She got her own house. Underneath that picture, the family still had an open case with Franklin County Children's Services, one that had been active, in some form, since before Martonio could walk. That case came with a caseworker. Not a county employee, but someone working for a private contractor the county pays to help manage cases like this one, the National Youth Advocate Program. By law, that caseworker was required to visit the home in person, at least once a month, to confirm the children were safe. What those visits actually looked like, on paper versus in person, would not become a public question for almost 3 more years. In late 2023, none of that was visible. What was visible was a stable-looking household, a working mother, 3 kids under one roof, and a file from a children's behavioral center, just months old, describing Martonio as a kid having a hard time. But this wasn't the first indication something was wrong. On Christmas Day 2023, Columbus police were called to the house on the east side of the city. The call came from Lashanda. She told the dispatcher her aunt, Rochelle Knight, had threatened her with a knife and a gun. When officers arrived, they didn't find any weapons. No one backed up Lashanda's account. What they found was a family argument. According to Knight, it started over Christmas presents. Lashanda hadn't gotten gifts for 2 of her older kids, including Martonio. Knight says Lashanda left with her youngest child and called police, and that her version of events wasn't true.
Because I didn't get my kids Christmas, and I don't have to. They don't deserve it. She tried to stab me in front of the kid. What y'all gonna do about that? Try to cut me in front of my son. She tried to stab me in front of my child. Lashanda.
Body camera footage from that day captured something else. On that recording, Martonio's great-aunt tells officers that if the children go home with Lashanda, they will be hurt. According to court filings, the words used were that the kids would be tortured, abused, and placed in danger.
I'm sure you just want her gone, right?
Oh, yeah. And I'm not trying to keep her kid. But if y'all feel that she's okay to go home, because I gotta tell you now, when she go home, and them babies is going to suffer.
It's worth sitting with that for a second. 6 months before Martonio died, there is a recording made by police on police equipment during a police call of a family member describing almost exactly what investigators would later say happened to him. At the time, it was logged as a domestic dispute, a holiday argument between relatives. One more call in a stack of calls. There's no indication that warning reached the caseworker responsible for Martonio's case, or that it changed anything about the monthly visit schedule, the file, or who was checking on that house and how often. 6 months later, that same caseworker's records would become part of a much larger question. But on Christmas night, 2023, all anyone knew was that a family had argued, a woman had called police on her own aunt, and 3 kids were going home. For the first half of 2024, the case went quiet, at least on paper. Lashanda Wilder's file with Franklin County Children's Services remained open. The caseworker assigned to the family was supposed to be visiting monthly, in person, to look at the children and confirm they were safe. By the family's account, something happened the week everything fell apart. Martonio's great-aunt, Rochelle Knight, says a caseworker came to the house that week, and Martonio wasn't there. Lashanda told the caseworker he was at daycare. According to Knight, the caseworker accepted that answer and left. My first thought, Knight would say afterward, was, what is the name of the daycare? No one has publicly confirmed exactly which day that visit happened, or what, if anything, was written down about it afterward. But the question Knight raised in the days after Martonio's death is the same question a wrongful death lawsuit would still be asking nearly 2 years later. When an 8-year-old isn't where his mother says he is, whose job is it to find out why? At the time it was a missed detail, a box checked, a family that seemed on paper fine. On the night of June 27th, according to the account Lashanda would later give police, the household went through its normal routine. 3 kids. Bedtime around 9:30 or 10 p.m. The back door, she said, had been left unlocked, something Martonio had used before, she told officers, when he wanted to leave on his own. That's the story that would be waiting for police the next morning. Whether it matched what actually happened that night is the question that would define everything that came next. By early afternoon on June 28th, Columbus police had a missing 8-year-old and a mother who said he'd run off before. They treated it accordingly, at first. Officers searched the immediate area. Then they expanded it. Drones went up. A helicopter scanned the neighborhood from above. Patrol units checked nearby parks, places Lashanda said Martonio liked to go. None of it turned up anything. As the afternoon wore on, the search shifted. From where did he go to is he still in this house? That's when investigators brought in a K9 unit, specifically a cadaver dog, trained to detect the scent of human remains. According to court records, this is the point where Lashanda Wilder became, in the words of the report, uncooperative. She didn't want the dog inside her home. A search warrant followed. At some point that afternoon, without telling the officers who were still actively searching for her son, Lashanda Wilder and Johnna Lowe left the house. They took the 2 younger children with them. They didn't say where they were going. They didn't come back. And inside that house, behind a door that had already been searched once, there was something that would change the entire nature of this case. The situation had crossed a line it could never return from. At 6:20 p.m., searchers found a body in the attic of the house. It matched the description of Martonio Wilder. It had been hidden in the one part of the house no one had been able to search hours earlier, when Lashanda Wilder refused to let the cadaver dog inside. Firefighters pronounced him dead at 6:33 p.m. In an instant, this stopped being a missing child case. It became a homicide investigation and a search for 2 people who had walked away from their own home in the middle of it. By 9 p.m., police issued an Amber Alert, not for Martonio, for his 2 younger siblings, and for Lashanda Wilder herself. Hours later, the 2 children were found safe at the home of Johnna Lowe's mother on the other side of the city. Lashanda and Lowe were not with them. Detectives tried to reach both women. Family members tried to reach both women. Neither one called back. Neither one turned on their phone. Earlier that afternoon, a cadaver dog had been turned away from a door. By the next morning, everyone would understand why. On June 29th, Lashanda Wilder and Johnna Lowe turned themselves in to Columbus police. Both were taken to the Franklin County Jail. In the days that followed, a grand jury reviewed the evidence. In July 2024, both women were indicted on charges of murder, felonious assault, endangering children, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. The indictment specified the crimes had occurred on June 27th, the day before Martonio was reported missing. Both women pleaded not guilty. In September 2024, the Franklin County Coroner's Office released its findings. The cause of death was asphyxia, caused by compression to the front of the neck. The report also noted blunt trauma to the head and severe malnutrition and dehydration. At the time of his death, Martonio weighed 35 pounds. For context, that's roughly half what's typical for an 8-year-old boy. The report didn't speculate about motive. It documented, in clinical language, the condition of a child's body and left the rest to investigators, prosecutors, and eventually, a courtroom. Over the months that followed, prosecutors built a picture of what had been happening inside that house, not just on June 27th, but for a long time before it. According to prosecutors, multiple witnesses, including family members, said Martonio had been treated differently from his siblings for some time. They described punishments: being made to hold a weighted ball while walking up and down the stairs, being restricted from food, being locked in a closet at night. Witnesses said Martonio was frequently hungry, that he'd been caught taking food from other homes and from his school. Lashanda Wilder would later tell police that she and Lowe locked Martonio in the closet specifically so he couldn't, in her words, sneak out for food. None of this was new information to everyone. Pieces of it had been visible, to teachers, to relatives, to a behavioral health center, to a caseworker whose job was to notice exactly this kind of thing. What was new was that, for the first time, all of it was being written down in one place by people whose job was to ask why. It took almost a year for the criminal case to reach its conclusion, and when it did, there was no trial. In June 2025, Johnna Lowe pleaded guilty to murder and gross abuse of a corpse. The other charges against her, felonious assault, endangering children, tampering with evidence, were dropped as part of the agreement. A judge sentenced her to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The following month, Lashanda Wilder changed her plea, guilty to murder, abuse of a corpse, and a separate charge of felony theft for stealing more than $1,000 from her workplace. She received the same sentence, life with parole eligibility after 15 years. In court, she cried through most of the hearing. Her aunt, Rochelle Knight, was allowed to speak to her directly. "You made a horrible mistake," Knight told her. "You had your family. I was there for you. I forgive you. You have to forgive yourself and deal with the consequences now." There was a third plea that summer, one that's received far less attention. Lashanda Wilder's own mother, Martonio's grandmother, pleaded guilty to obstructing justice. According to police, when investigators searched for the two younger children during the Amber Alert, she didn't tell them the kids were in her home. She received a suspended sentence and 2 years of community control. 3 generations of one family in 3 separate courtrooms for 3 different roles in the same case. But justice, in this case, came at a cost. A guilty plea closes a criminal case. It doesn't answer the other question this case had raised from the very beginning, the one about everyone who wasn't in that house, but was supposed to be watching it. Martonio's 2 younger siblings are now in the custody of Franklin County Children's Services, the same agency that for years had an open file on their family. In the weeks after Martonio's death, his extended family went public with their frustration. Rochelle Knight and Sia Glover described a family that had tried more than once to step in, and a system that, in their view, kept returning the children to the one place they weren't safe. "Children's Services failed that baby," Knight said. "They failed that baby." A spokesperson for the agency told reporters they couldn't discuss the specifics of an open case, citing state privacy law. When asked broader questions about how children get removed from homes, the agency said that decision ultimately belongs to law enforcement and the courts, not to caseworkers. It's a structural answer to a very specific question, and for a family burying an 8-year-old, it wasn't much of an answer at all. For about 2 years, that's where the public part of this story stalled. 2 women in prison, a family with unanswered questions, an agency that by law couldn't say much. Then in May 2026, that changed. In late May 2026, attorneys representing Martonio's estate filed a wrongful death lawsuit in Franklin County Common Pleas Court. The lawsuit doesn't target Lashanda Wilder or Johnna Lowe, they're already in prison. Instead, it names Franklin County Children's Services, Franklin County Job and Family Services, the National Youth Advocate Program, and one specific person, the caseworker assigned to Martonio's case. The lawsuit alleges that caseworker didn't make the monthly in-person visits the law required, and that she falsified her activity log to make it look like she had. Separately, outside the civil case, that same caseworker has been criminally indicted on a charge of tampering with records. She's pleaded not guilty. That case is still pending. The lawsuit also does something the criminal cases never did. It puts the December 2023 body camera recording back on the record. The one where a family member told police 6 months in advance what would happen to these children if they went home. Attorneys for the family say they intend to use the civil discovery process to obtain records the criminal case never required. Case notes, internal communications, audit logs. One more detail surfaced when the lawsuit was announced. Between February 2024 and April 2025, attorneys say 5 different children with open Franklin County Children's Services cases died. Martonio was one of them. The lawsuit doesn't claim anyone could have prevented all 5. It claims that, in at least one of those cases, the system had already been told what to expect and didn't write it down correctly. As of this recording, the caseworker's criminal case is still working its way through Franklin County's courts. The civil lawsuit is just beginning, which means most of what it uncovers hasn't happened yet. What's already on the record is enough to sit with. 6 months before Martonio Wilder died, a police officer's body camera recorded a family member describing his death in advance, almost word for word. That recording sat in a file for over 2 years before anyone outside the department heard it. Somewhere in Franklin County right now, there's probably another file, another caseworker's log, another family member who said something to someone that didn't get written down the way it should have. If the warning signs were visible here, how many are being missed somewhere else right now? Thanks for watching Guilty Crime Files. These were cases involving ordinary people, and that's exactly why they matter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because the right knowledge could save a life. Stay alert, and I'll see you in the next file.